But I think we can move on to Terence Bud Crawford, because he has also left PBC, not for money reasons, but because he's not getting any fights there. Essentially, he beat up Spence so bad that Spence now had to get surgery. He couldn't pretty much keep up with the rematch clause. He did activate it, but then had to pull out. So essentially, I believe Bud signed a deal with PBC, and what it was a one fight deal, and then they had the rematch clause. And so because Spence is inactive right now, essentially, because he is recovering, Terence Bud Crawford is a free agent and he can bounce. And for Terence Bud Crawford, it's like he's also leaving because PBC is always like the waiting game, right? He has to go now. What is Bud, like 35, 36 years old? So he wants the next big money fight. And for him, when he takes a look at who's available, he did say Tim Tszyu wasn't going to be a moneymaker for him. Tim Tszyu also fighting at the end of March against Keith Thurman. I think it's a moneymaker, but Bud doesn't think it's a big enough fight. Bud doesn't think Jaron Boots Ennis is a big enough fight for him. And he's kind of stuck like, well, who should I fight next? Right. I think he would have fight Jermell Charlo, but then Mel put up a stinker, like I said, right? He didn't put up a good fight. So Terence Bud Crawford, at this point in his career, he wants to make a lot of money. He wants the biggest fight. So I'm going to kind of connect the two here. If Bud doesn't sign for a fight in the next couple of months, and I don't know if he's going to be able to, because who is he going to fight? Because he's already said, no, I'm not fighting Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu's fighting in March. He said, I'm not fighting Jaron Boots Ennis. He's like not a moneymaker. He doesn't think the Charlo brothers are going to be making him any money after their performances. So he wants the next big fight. And the only person that he's really called out is Canelo Alvarez. Is it a possibility, Brian, that Canelo and Bud face off in September? Because that would be a massive fight, a really, really big fight, because Bud wants to make the money at this point of his career. He's not looking for those small fights.
I'm not. I don't, because Canelo Alvarez keeps saying, and has said again, if I beat him, they're going to say he was too small, and if I lose, then obviously that's a bad look, losing to essentially a welterweight. And I believe him, because he said that. He said that last year, when he was at the press conference for the Jermell Charlo fight that I was at in New York, and people were asking him about Terence Crawford and the super fight or whatever, and he's just like, look, they're gonna say he was too small, whatever. You're more in on that fight than me. I just don't. I don't think it's gonna happen. But
you were more in on Teofimo Lopez and Bud Crawford, whereas I'm more in on Canelo and Bud, because I think at this point in Bud's career, he's looking to make the most money that he can, and that's the fight where he would make the most money. And so I'm just like playing fantasy in the sense where like, well, who is Canelo's opponent in September? You know what I mean? So
I just think the way I look at that is just, I think Teofimo Lopez is crazy enough to go up to 154 if Terence Crawford wants to do it at 154, right? Like I just think he's.
And I think Bud is crazy enough to be like, yo, I'm gonna go up to like 160, maybe a catch weight, 163-ish, 160, like a catch. Yeah.
I don't think Canelo does it though. Is my larger point.
You never know with what Canelo wants to do. Some people think he's cherry picking a little bit. I don't believe so. If you take a look at Canelo's resume, he's fought everyone that he said he was going to fight, essentially. Like there was so much talking. We talked about this on the preview with him and Jermell Charlo. And at one point I was like, yo, he's ducking this Charlo brother. He's ducking the Charlo brothers, but he wasn't. He fought them. And at this point in Canelo's career, it's like, we want to see the Benavidez fight. Obviously, that's the fight that everyone wants to see. And we keep on saying it because that's the only fight we want to see. But when is Canelo going to have that fight with Benavidez? Like I'm debating if it's even going to happen at this point. We don't even know Benavidez's terms with PBC, if he's going to stay there or if he's going to leave. Lots going on at PBC and Amazon, and it's really interesting. But I mean, Terence Bud Crawford, who does he fight next? If he's already, Brian, let me ask you that. Who does Bud fight next? Because it looks like it's going to be a year since we're going to see him in the ring, right? Because the fight was in July. Yeah. So, and Bud usually fights like once a year anyways. But you
want to guess the last time he's fought twice in a year? I just looked it up.
It's been a minute. It's got to be more than like 4 years.
2019.
Yeah.
So you're on it. That was when he fought Me Machine and Amir Khan.
Yeah. Oh my god, what he did to Amir Khan, that was ridiculous.
It feels like so. I
Um,
was at that one too. I was at both of those actually. Those are both in New York, back when we used
yeah.
to get fucking fights in New
Well,
York.
apparently you guys are gonna get another one with
Oh
Ryan
yeah.
Garcia and Devin Haney. You guys are
I
getting that
already
one at the
signed up.
Barclays,
I
right?
already signed
So,
up. Matchroom. Don't play with me.
any final thoughts though on Terence but Crawford leaving PBC or anything like that, Brian? Before we get up out of here.
I feel like he's gonna move to super welterweight. It's something he's talked about doing. It's something that the WBO president came out and said, like Terence Crawford would love to fight at 154. And I think everybody knows this. Now it's just a matter of finding the right opponent. There's not a money opponent at 154, if I'm
And
being
that's what he
honest.
wants. And that's why I keep saying he would be crazy enough to move up to a catch weight of like 163-ish or whatever and fight Canelo, because he has pretty much said, like, yo, there's not a dance partner for me. He's pretty
Yeah.
much said that. So it's
Which
like,
is
what's next?
it sucks because Boots Ennis is right there.
He says
Right.
he's not big enough. He said
I
Boots is not a
know,
big enough
but
name. And you know what? I kind of agree.
I don't disagree either, but like, so what? Like, like this is kind of somebody who, I mean, yes, Boots Ennis is a champion 147 now. Terence Crawford has titles at 147. I think they're both going to be at 154 at some point. I think Terence Crawford just wants to do it sooner. Boots Ennis is younger. That's not a money fight for him, then I'm not sure Tim Zoo is.
I think the money's there for Tim Zoo.
Now,
I think it would be there, especially like if he goes and like knocks out Keith Thurman,
so
who
that's what I'm
I
getting at.
yeah,
Yeah. If I think the winner of that fight could fight, like, okay, if Terence Crawford hasn't fought since July of last year, late July. The
July
winner of
28th,
Tim,
I believe. Yeah.
yeah, 28, 29, something like that. So there's enough time for him to get in a fight between now and then. It'll probably be in July or in June, but with Keith Thurman and Tim Zoo fighting late March, maybe the move is just wait to see who wins that fight. Because I think whoever wins that fight is gonna be a money player. I think Keith Thurman already is on name alone, but he needs to get a win. He hasn't fought in 2 years, and the Vegas will tell you he's not going to win this fight because Tim Zoo is like a minus 800, 900 favorite,
It's
which is
disrespectful.
it's
I think that's so
wild.
disrespectful
The
to
Vegas lines are
one
so bad
time.
for this sport. The Vegas lines are so bad in boxing. We're going to talk about a couple bad lines coming up, actually.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, like, I think whoever wins that fight is probably the best you're going to do money wise, Terence Crawford. If you want to do this at 154. Otherwise, like, the Errol Spence rematch is going to take a long time to materialize. You don't want to fight Jerome Boots Ennis reportedly. Is he going to fight Erickson Lubin,
No.
who's like a champion? Like,
I
you know what I mean? Like,
I just don't think that Bud is looking to fight someone that isn't a big name at this point. I think that's, look at his age. I think he wants to make the most money that he can at his career, and at this point, he's pretty much at the pinnacle where everyone's like, "Yo, pound for pound, he's the best." So that's
yeah.
why I'm like, "Yo, September, Canelo." You never know. Will Canelo do it? Probably not. But we never know what
Misspoke.
Canelo's going to
Also,
do.
I said is a champion. I mean, isn't a champion right now. Erickson Lubin, not a champion right now. Yeah, he's not like. Who are we talking about here?
The only one
And
that
we,
makes sense, and I've said this before, is Tim Zoo. But Tim Zoo, I think he has to knock out Keith Thurman for it to make it a little bit interesting. And I do think he's gonna beat Keith Thurman in that fight.
And you and I have talked about this, and we'll wrap here with this particular segment. But you and I have talked about this. There's a big lack of depth at 154 and at 160, and even at 147. Like, there are not a lot of like name guys in those divisions. There's some talent, but not a ton that'll make your casual fight fans stop what they're doing and watch them at all. Right? At 154, some would argue that there isn't any outside of maybe Tim Zoo.
That's it.
Virgil Ortiz is now at 154, but he's not a name that's resonating with more than just boxing fans right now. And it's something we talk about on the show because it matters. If boxing is going to be that sport again, yeah, you have to have stars that resonate outside of just the people that are going to be there at 11 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Pacific on a Saturday that are going to watch the sport. So,
Yeah, I agree.
um, yeah,
Uh,
I just think that, like, and then you go to middleweight. If Terence Crawford wants to get really ambitious, you're talking about Jamal Charlo, Chris Eubank Jr., Yanni Beck. Like, he's not gonna fight any of these dudes. So I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna do, Terence Crawford. I say fight Boots Ennis. honestly. I think that's your best option right now, and Luke
He's
Sanderson
not
also
gonna
makes
do
Terence
it,
fine.
and he's not going to do it. So here at the
Yeah.
mandatory, we want to know who you think Terence Bud Crawford is going to fight next, should fight next. Who do you think Canelo should fight next? Are you into the Jaime Munguia fight? Let us know. Drop your comments below. Also, follow us on our social media channels and make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks so much for rocking with us. We'll be back with some more content for you.